Hello class. Today we're going to talk about the distributive property. Okay, so let me slide down to it and then we'll begin our lesson. Okay, distributive property. Okay, it says simplify the expression or combine like terms. So in order for us to understand the distributive property, the first thing we need to understand is combining like terms. Combining like terms means putting things together that are alike. Take, for example, this first problem. 3x plus 5 plus negative 6x. When we look at the three parts, each one of those things are called terms. So if we look at two of them, 3x and negative 6x, those have something in common. They have an x in common, so we can actually add those together. So if we have this 3x and the negative 6x, if I put that together, 3 and negative 6 are going to make a negative 3. So we would have a negative 3x, and then the 5 doesn't have anything to combine with, so we just write plus 5. So this is called a simplified expression. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing here at the beginning. So before we can understand distributive property, we have to understand how to combine like terms. Now the same thing holds true just like we did with equations. If you see any subtraction in the problem, the first thing that I would do is I would fix that. I would turn all subtractions to addition, next number to their opposites. Then that allows us to be able to put like things together, okay? Because we've got that thing, called the commutative property. It says I can move things around however I want to, okay, as long as we maintain the proper mathematics. In addition is when I can move things around. Subtraction, I can't. Okay, so here's another. I'm going to change that. So now I begin putting like things together. So the first thing that I do is I look what pieces could go together. So if I look at this first one here, I got a 5mn. So I look down the whole line and I see, is there any other mn's? Yes, there is. There's some right here. Okay, so I can put those together. So I've got 5mn's and negative 7mn's. So that would give me a negative 2mn. Okay, plus, because I like everything to be in addition. So now those two pieces are gone. So now I look for the next piece. Here I've got some m's, and I've got some m's, and I've got some more m's. So I add all the m's together. So 6m and 4m make 10, plus 2 more make 12m. So now all my m's are gone, and now I have one n left, so plus negative 7n. Now, the only other way that we could write this would be negative 2mn plus 12m, and then this plus negative, we could turn that into a minus 7n if we wanted to. Now, there's some other ways of rearranging it. Technically, this particular expression would be written 12m plus negative 2mn plus negative 7n, because you would begin putting things in alphabetical order and all that kind of good stuff. So that's the reason why I like everything to be in plus, so then I can rearrange it any way I need to. Okay, so let's take a look at this last one here. Okay, so the last one, we add one more piece to it. We add exponents. So here we've got x's and x squareds, and x's and x squareds don't go together. Okay, so we can only put like things together. So the first thing that I would do in a problem like this is I'm going to change my minuses and the next numbers to their opposites. And now I'm going to start combining like terms. So I have a 3x squared and a negative 2x squared. So if I put that together, I end up with x squared. Okay, because the 3 and the negative 2 will subtract. So plus, so my x squareds are gone. And now I do my x's. So I got a 2x here and a 6x here, which is going to give me 8x. Plus, so now my x's are gone, and now I have a 4 and a negative 10, which would give me a negative 6. So if we combine those like terms and simplify that expression, we've got x squared plus 8x plus negative 6, and that would be the expression that we would use. Okay, that's how we combine like terms. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to pause the video and answer these questions. Okay, now I'm not going to go over them at the end, okay, but pause the video and answer those questions before you begin learning about the distributive property. Okay, so now let's talk about the distributive property. So it says for this property, I'm going to start with the definition and then do an example after. So the distributive property states A parenthesis B plus C is equal to A times B plus A times C, where A, B, and C are any real number. They can be anything. Okay? So it says, first, let me remind you what it means when two letters are right next to each other. This in algebra means to multiply. So this right here, the A and the B and the A and the C means to multiply. Well, anytime you have an A right up next to a parenthesis, it also means to multiply. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. Okay, the distributive property is telling us to deal with how to deal with these parentheses when we just have letters inside. We're going to need to do this a lot in algebra. So remember that you always do what's in the parentheses first. But in algebra, you may not be able to add the B and the C. So this property tells you what to do. It says I can take this A, because this is what we call the distributive property. Distribute means to pass out. So I'm going to pass this A out to the B, and I'm going to pass this A out to the C, and we pass it out through multiplication. That's how we get the AB plus the AC. Okay, so we distribute the A to each member. So the way I kind of think about this is the A is a set of papers that I've got to pass out to the class. Inside the parentheses is the class. And I've got to pass a paper out to every single member of that class. And that's how we end up with this AB plus AC. So let's look at it in terms of numbers. Now, if I actually had numbers in the middle, it wouldn't be quite so bad. It says, okay, let's check this thing with some real numbers, just so we can really believe that it works. Okay, so we got 2 parentheses, 3 plus 4. First, let's do it the official order of operations way. Okay, in other words, do what's in the parentheses first. So we take the 3 and the 4, we add them together, and we get a 7. And then this 2 right up next to this parenthesis means to multiply. So 2 times 7 gives us 14. So now let's look at it using the distributive property. We're going to pass the 2 out to the 3 and pass the 2 out to the 4. So this 2 passes out to the 3 with the 2 times 3. The 2 passes out to the 4 with the 2 times 4. So now 2 times 3 gives us 6. 2 times 4 gives us 8. We add the 6 and the 8 together and we get 14. So it does really work. Okay, so now let's try it out with some real examples. Okay, so let's write this first example down. 3 parentheses, 2x plus 4. Okay, so we're going to use this with the distributive property. Now what I'm going to do at first is I'm going to show you what it kind of means. Okay, so this right here, what it would really mean is I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to pass it out to the 2x. So that's going to give us 3 times 2x plus the 3 times the 4. So now we're going to simplify this. So 3 2x's is going to actually give me 6x total. And then 3 times 4 actually gives us 12. Now, I'm not expecting you to write it out like this, but that's what the distributive property really means. All I'm going to expect you to do, okay, if I were to erase all this and start over, what I would expect you to do is pass the 3 to the 2x, and 3 times 2x is going to give me 6x, plus, and then pass the 3 out to the 4 to get 12. And that's what I would expect to see as your answer. All right, and that is simplifying this expression using the distributive property. And that's what we're looking for. Okay, the second one. Okay, the first thing I see in a problem like this is I see there's a minus. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change that because I want everything to be plus before I begin. Okay, now we've got a 2m plus this right here. Well, order of operations says we got to take care of a multiplication before we can take care of anything. And that is exactly what we're going to do in the distributive property as well. We're going to take care of this parenthesis part first. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 2m and I'm going to write it down. Plus, now I'm going to deal with the distributive property. So I'm going to pass this 4 out to the 3m. So 4 3m's would actually give me 12m. Plus, and I'm going to take the 4 and I'm going to pass it out to the negative 4. So 4 times negative 4 would give me negative 16. Now I'm going to come back and use combining like terms to finish the simplification out. because we've got a 2m and a 12m that I can put together. So 2m and 12m will make 14m plus negative 16. And now we have a simplified expression. Now, this last one here, this one's a little bit tougher, okay, because you got two sets of distributive property to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look inside my parentheses and see if there's any minus that I can fix. So I see this one right here that I'm going to fix. Now, there's one other minus that's going to cause us some problems, and that's this one right here in the middle, okay? So that's the one we got to take care of next. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change that subtraction to addition and the 3 to a negative. So what I actually pass out is a negative 3, right? So we start with the first set. I've got a negative 5. I pass it out to the x to give me negative 5x plus, and then pass the negative 5 out to the 4 to give me a negative 20. And then plus, and now I'm going to pass the negative 3 out. So negative 3 and negative 2x is going to give me a positive 6x plus, and a negative 3 and a negative 2 is going to give me a positive 6. And now again, just like in the previous example, we combine like terms. So I have a negative 5x and a 6x that can go together to give me 1x, or just x, plus, and I have a negative 20 and a 6 that can go together to give me a negative 14. So you can write this as x plus negative 14, or you could write it as x minus 14, and both of those would be correct. So that's the first part of the distributive property. Something pretty simple. It's really not that difficult. Okay, so we distribute, and then we combine like terms. Sometimes, though, they do get a little bit more difficult. Okay, so we add one more thing into the problem, something called brackets. Now, brackets are just a second set of fancy parentheses. That's really all they are. Okay, so in a problem like this first one that we see up here, and all this right here, okay, the first thing I'm going to take care of is this minus. Okay, so we take care of that by changing subtraction to addition next to its opposite. And we start on the innermost set of parentheses first. So the way I answer a problem like this, because I know I'm going to start right here doing the distributive property, all I do is I take the 2, I write it down, put the bracket, the 3, plus, and now I'm ready to do my distributing. Okay, so I pass the 4 out to the 3x to give me a 12x, plus I pass the 4 out to the negative 3 to give me a negative 12. Now, I take all this stuff on the inside and I put together anything that I can put together. So again, I just write the 2, bracket, and now I see I've got a 12x because I always like putting my letters first, and it doesn't have anything to combine with, so I'm going to just write 12x plus, and now I've got this 3 and this negative 12 that could go together to actually make a negative 9. Now, I do one last thing. I take this 2 and I pass it out and distribute it. So I've got the 2 to the 12x, which will give me a 24x, plus, and I've got the 2 to the negative 9, which will give me a negative 18. And now I have a simplified expression. Now, what I'd like for you to do, I want you to pause the video, and I want to see if you can answer this last one here by yourself. Okay? So pause the video and practice using the distributive property and combining like terms. And I'll give you a few moments to do that, and I'll come back and we'll see if you got the right answer. Okay, so let's see how you did. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look for any minus that I could change. Okay, so I do see one here at the end, so I'm going to change the subtraction to addition, the 3 to its opposite. Now I'm going to begin using the distributive property. So I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to just write it down in the bracket. And then I'm going to start passing out the 2. So 2 times 6x will give me 12x. Plus 2 times 7 gives me 14. Plus, and then I pass this 2 out to this set. So 2 times negative 2x gives me negative 4x. Plus 2 times negative 3 gives me negative 6. And then anything that I can put together on the inside, I put it together. So I write the 3 and the bracket, and then I start looking. Do I have anything I can put together? I've got a 12x and a negative 4x to give me 8x plus, and I've got a 14 and a negative 6 to give me 8. And now I'm going to do one last distribute. Take this 3 and pass it out. So 3 to the 8x gives me 24x, plus 3 to the 8 gives me 24. So this whole thing right here simplifies down to 24x plus 24. And that's really all there is to doing the distributive property. Okay. Now tomorrow what we're going to do is we will work on our assignment. Okay, I'll run you through a few more examples and then we'll work on the assignment. Okay, so until then, I'll see you later.